Hello friends and welcome to Study IQ. I'm Joycey Joy and today in this lecture we will discuss about the G7 summit and its significance to India. We will see how significant is G7 and we will also understand what are the emerging issues for India and how India can address it. Now before we move on to the current affair, let us first understand what is G7. What is this G7 grouping all about? So G7 or a group of 7 is a group of 7 highly industrialized or most advanced economies as per the IMF. So it is the grouping of 7 highly advanced economies. This includes Canada, United States, UK, France, Germany, Japan and Italy. And these countries account for almost 64% of the net global wealth and 46% of the global GDP. So you need to understand that G7 is a grouping of most advanced economies, 7 most advanced economies in the world. So recently the G7 summit was held and let us see from that context what is the significance for India. Now let us come to the current affair. The 45th G7 summit was held in France from 24th to 26th of August 2019. And the focus of this summit was to fight inequality in the world. So this was the focus of the summit. Now let us understand what are the concerns after the G7 summit. So after the G7 summit, certain tensions or concerns are coming up. What are they? So first one is about the US President Donald Trump's say on mediation between India and Pakistan on the Kashmir issue. This is the biggest concern for India. That is, what would be the say or the stance of the US President on mediation between India and Pakistan in the Kashmir issue and the recent repeal of Article 370 by the Indian Parliament. Now, second one is regarding the problems and possibilities in the world. First one regarding economic conflict between major powers and mainly here the China-US trade war. So, what can be the possibilities and also the problems in the world that is coming up where there is an increased economic conflict between major economies in the world. Secondly, there are sharpening political divisions in the West. And a very good example of this is the Brexit. So there are political divisions in the West and the economic conflict existing between major countries. So in these contexts, what can be the possibilities and problems in the new world? This is also a concern for India. Now, the biggest concern here for India would be to address these challenges. How can India address these challenges and how can India respond to the current global order in order to contribute towards shaping a new economy or new world? So this is the concern for India after the G7 summit. Now let us come to the Kashmir issue. How can India deal with the Kashmir issue? So first of all, India should rework the political compact with the people in Kashmir Valley. So the government should adopt a participatory approach where the people living in the Kashmir Valley will be included or will be consulted in the process of constitutional arrangement or framing a new constitutional arrangement for them. So government should adopt a participatory approach here. Now this Kashmir issue can be complicated or can be made more complicated by the internationalization of the issue by Pakistan. Now, what is meant by internationalization of the issue? Now, Pakistan is taking the Kashmir issue, especially the repeal of Article 370 by the Indian Constitution, to international fora. So, in various international forums, the Pakistan is exhibiting this as a major issue for Pakistan. It is also seeking the support of other major economies like China, Russia, US, etc. So, this internationalization of the issue by Pakistan can be a concern for India. But at the same time, this should not be a bigger issue for India because already all other major economies like China, US, etc. have their own issues to deal with. So in that situation, it is hoped that US, China and all will not interfere into the Kashmir issue to a larger extent. But even though internationalization of this issue by Pakistan is causing concerns for India, India is also concerned about the internal security and also the peace situation in Kashmir. Now let us come to the G7 summit. Let us see what is the summary of the summit, what all issues were discussed in the summit. The first one, the French president was trying to mediate between US and Islamic Republic, that is between Iran and the United States. This is over the nuclear deal issue. So this is one matter that was brought to the attention of the countries which participated in the G7 summit, and French president was trying to mediate on this issue, and major issues, other issues were also discussed in the G7 summit, which includes, first one is regarding the Amazon forest fires. So this is a major ecological and environmental concern which was discussed in the summit. Second one was regarding the Brexit, that is the withdrawal of UK from the European Union. So this was also largely discussed. Third one was the rising tensions between US and China. So this trade war issue is discussed in almost all the international forums, because the trade war and the disruption in the trade caused due to this trade war is causing harm and problems for almost all the economies in the world. Almost all the economies, including the Indian economy, is impacted due to the ongoing trade war between China and US. So for that matter, this was also a very important issue that was discussed in the G7 summit. Fourth one was regarding the French threat to impose new taxes on American technology companies. The American tech companies, the French government or the France is trying to impose new taxes on the American tech companies. So this was another issue that was discussed. So from all these, what we understand is that the world has so many issues to discuss and to come up with solutions. So the Kashmir issue is not a very big issue for the world, because there are already these major issues like the Amazon, Brexit, US and China trade war. So in between all these major issues, Kashmir issue is not a very big deal for major economies. The Kashmir issue can become a major issue, a significant issue in the international fora, if it escalates, that is the situation in Kashmir escalates into a situation which will cause threat to the security of people living in the region. If it causes any military tensions between India and Pakistan, then it will definitely become a very important international issue. And in this regard, India should be very cautious that there is no escalation of military tensions between India and Pakistan, and this issue should not affect the internal security and the peace of people living in this Kashmir region. Now let us see what is the concept called Western primacy. Now the concept of Western primacy means that the rest of the world, the other countries in the world, were following the principles of the West. It means that the Western countries, they were championing in global capitalism, in security alliances, in multilateral institutions like the WTO, IMF, World Bank, etc. So in all these parameters, the Western countries were the champions or they were leading. So this concept is called Western primacy. That means the rest of the world was following the principles of the Western countries in adopting capitalism, in security alliances, in multilateral institutions. In all these, the Western countries had an upper hand. So this was followed by the rest of the world, and this is called Western primacy. Now why is Western primacy important here? This is because the Western primacy is showing a changing trend or a declining trend. That means the order is changing. Now the West is not the model from where the rest of the world has adopted its principles. This is because of the disruptions in the current global economic and political order. Now let us see how did the Western primacy emerge. So for many decades, the Western countries, they were the champions or the leaders in what we said about capitalism, security alliances, multilateral institutions, etc. This is because they had been pioneered, or they pioneered this capitalism culture. They were the founders or the founding members of the multilateral institutions. They promoted the multilateral institutions. For example, United States was in favor of the WTO in order to promote a culture of undisruptive trade across different countries in the world. So the concept of WTO was highly promoted by the United States. The United States wanted to create a free trading culture in the world. So especially after the World War II, the Western primacy was immutable. That means the Western countries came out as the leaders. Now different countries, the other countries in the world, the communist countries, the socialist countries, the nationalists in the East, the countries in the southern region, they all agreed to the principles or the guidelines that the western countries came up with. And now what is happening, especially the United States, the United States is actually now withdrawing from what they had already created. Now let us say, for example, the capitalism. Capitalism is a principle which believes that private ownership of the resources must be enhanced, and it also promotes free trade. So trade without any disruptions is being promoted here. But the ongoing China and US trade war implies that the principle of capitalism is downgraded by the United States. Now, if we talk about multilateral institutions, the United States, the President Donald Trump has recently threatened that the US would be pulling out of the WTO. So the principles of WTO was initially promoted by the US. WTO was created for free and fair trade across the countries. So now US has threatened to pull out of WTO. So it means that the West is actually withdrawing from all its policies and all the priorities that it had set up. So the Western primacy is losing its importance, and also we are seeing a changing order across the world. Now let us come to the US. Let us understand some of the actions of the US President. So first of all, in general, if we speak, the US President Donald Trump used G7 forum as a forum for orchestrating the political and economic cooperation between the Western powers. Now, secondly, at the G7 summit of 2017, Trump announced the withdrawal from the 2015 Paris Agreement. This was done 2 years back in 2017 G7 summit. So he announced withdrawal from the Paris Accord. It was for mitigating the climate change. Now, when we talk about the WTO, the US President has threatened that US would be pulling out of the WTO also. And he is also ready to bring down the trading architecture around the world in favor of bilateral deals. This is because WTO is a multilateral organization. So now US is favoring bilateral deals. Now also fourthly, the US is also undermining the military alliances that we already spoke. US was considered to be an example for setting up of military alliances. Now it is seen that US is undermining the military alliances in Europe and in Asia. And this undermining of military alliances by the US with Europe and Asia is a very good chance or a prospect for Russia and China. And also the US President wants to end the wars with Middle East. So we can say that the actions of the US President showcases that US is going to undertake a lot of structural changes. Now let us see what are the demands for India. What is US demanding from India? So first of all, US wants India to look at new economic and security policies. It also wants India to adopt structural changes in the global order. So it is demanding for structural changes greater than that of the 1990s new economic policy. That was a structural change that we adopted in 1991. So he is looking at structural changes to be adopted by India. So these are the demands from US to India. And now what is the way ahead for India? So in this context, India needs to rework on its external as well as internal strategies. So this is to help India to cope up with the global political challenges. We have already seen what are the existing global political challenges. So in order to cope up with the global political challenges, it has to undertake and rework on its external and internal economic strategies. You can find the PDF of this lecture on our website www.studyiq.com. You can also follow my Facebook page for more video updates. You can write to me at joyce.studyiq@gmail.com for any of your queries and clarifications. Thank you.